A major Taiwanese airline tries to appease disgruntled workers, but faces a backlash.
但是目前来讲，我们看到的是，那公司虽然提供了一个加薪，但是非常非常微薄，甚至我们可以说是施舍。
We take a look at how Taiwan's presidential candidates aim to get people having more children. As the country grapples with an aging population, more NGOs are helping people look after their elderly family members. Plus, did you know you could go to jail for insulting someone in public? Taiwan is looking at whether this law needs to change. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. The head of a major pilots union has told TaiwanPlus that she's confident a majority of its members will vote next week to go on strike. This comes as Taiwan's top airline, EVA Air, has been in hot water over pay and safety issues. The company's offering record bonuses, but some pilots say it's not enough. To learn more about the situation, here's our reporter Tiffany Wong speaking with the chair of the Taoyuan Union of Pilots, Li Xinyan.
So can you tell me why the pilots union is holding a strike vote and what issues airline workers are dealing with?
这一两年来，我们看到了在公司里面有非常多的问题。当然，薪资只是其中一个部分，但是因为薪资不佳，人才留不下来，所导致的缺工，而造成了整个集团里面，不管是飞行员、空服员或甚至地勤员工，都有非常大的问题存在。
EVA recently announced a year-end bonus and also a planned salary increase next year. Does that address your demands at all?
那公司目前提出的这样的一个薪资调整，其实只是差不多能够克服在2023年一整年的这样子的一个通膨的一个状况而已哦。所以其实跟我们原来员工的预期其实有相当大的落差。但是目前来讲，我们看到的是，那公司虽然提供了一个加薪，但是非常非常微薄，甚至我们可以说是施舍。所以在这个方面，那公司用其他的媒体的方式，那来企图就是扰乱工会的罢工投票这样的一个行为，因为内部根本完全都没有任何的公告让员工来知道这样的一个举措，为什么反而不是先对员工来做，而是先对媒体来做呢？所以非常的明显，就是他在操作社会大众的民意跟这个带动这样的一个风向，那企图去混淆。
Could you tell us about the progress of the strike vote? Do you expect to strike?
那目前呢，这几天开票的投票的结果是非常的踊跃，所以我们预期我们一定在1月5号的时候，我们可以确定拿到合法的罢工权。我们也会召开另外的理事会来讨论接下来取得罢工权之后后续的决策。
There was our reporter Tiffany Wong speaking with Taoyuan Union of Pilots Chair Li Xinyan. The Navy is not giving up the search for 3 submariners missing at sea. Officials say they're searching ever larger areas to find the sailors.
每4个小时会按照它整个洋流的这个测算，然后我们逐步来扩大我的搜寻的范围。
6 people were washed overboard by rogue waves while moving equipment on a sub in waters off southeastern Taiwan last Thursday. 3 of them were rescued, but the other 3 have not been found. The Navy says it won't stop searching and they're not giving up on their comrades. Crime, nuclear power, and gender issues were the main topics at a second policy forum for Taiwan's presidential candidates. Ruling Democratic Progressive Party nominee Lai Ching-te took the stage along with opposition candidates Hou You-yi of the Kuomintang and Ko Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party. This was the second of 3 televised forums for the candidates to present their platforms. The country will head to the polls in less than 3 weeks. As election days looms, people here are looking closely at the candidates' policies to decide who to vote for. Here at TaiwanPlus, we'll be exploring the real issues. Taiwan's low fertility rate looms over all facets of society. Addressing the shrinking population will need to be a top priority for the next president if Taiwan is to have a future. Eric Gao explains.
There's an existential crisis facing Taiwan, and it isn't the Chinese military. The nation's on course to overtake South Korea as the country with the world's lowest fertility rate. Current projections suggest Taiwan's population could fall by as much as 40% by the year 2070. But as election day nears, the presidential hopefuls say they can bring the country back from this cliff edge. For Lai Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, access to childcare is key. Despite the low fertility rate, getting affordable care can still be difficult. Lai wants more publicly funded daycares and subsidies so the youngest children can go to them. He wants longer daycare hours to take the pressure off working parents, and he wants to make becoming a daycare provider or kindergarten teacher more attractive with pay raises. His opposition rivals are focusing more on the rising cost of living that makes having children too expensive for many. The Kuomintang's Hou You-yi wants maternity leave equal to full pay, up from the current 80%. He wants a one-off housing subsidy for families with 3 or more kids, and he wants to offer young women money to freeze their eggs. The Taiwan People's Party's Ke Wen-je sees the issue as one of cultural mores. He ties the low fertility rate to a trend of people not getting married, but he has proposed his own fixes all the same. He wants payments for expectant and new mothers, and to extend subsidies for children until they reach 12 years old. He also backs legalizing surrogacy and extending maternity leave. Overall, the issue of Taiwan's stubbornly low fertility rate has been overshadowed by issues like China and by the theatrical nature of the country's style of campaigning. But the chance to stop a population crunch is slipping away, and the winning candidate's decisions on this problem will decide how well Taiwan is able to keep going into the coming decades. James Lin, John Ben Trieste, and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
In just 2 years, Taiwan is expected to become a super age society, where 1 in 5 people will be over the age of 65. As demand for elderly care in Taiwan grows, local NGOs are working to help families avoid caregiving burnout. Joyce Zheng has this story.
97-year-old Chen is looked after by her 6 children, all of whom are over the age of 60 and have chronic illnesses themselves, a reality of Taiwan's rapidly aging society. The Chen siblings have been rotating weekends to stay with their mother, while one sister, Chen Lihui, looks after her during the week, a job that's been harder since her mother had a fall.
晚上我也没办法休息呀，晚上真的是没有办法，随时都要提起精神来
Caring for Taiwan seniors is a growing responsibility for a population that is both aging and shrinking. In a decade, the number of people aged over 65 has doubled, while the number of births has dropped almost 44%. Often the burden of caregiving falls onto individual families, something that local NGOs say causes quite a few problems within the home.
或多或少都会遇到这种分工上面的冲突，还有就是对医疗决策的意见不一致，或者他在经费支出面上面，大家的负担能力不一致。
The Taiwan Association of Family Caregivers runs a free consulting hotline and offers services like training seminars and psychological consultations for families. They say a third party can often help relieve tensions, something that has already driven some households to court over caregiving disputes.
在诉讼当中，它的时间是蛮长的，动辄要8个月、10个月，甚至更久的时间。那第二个是所判决的金额常常不符合民众的期待。
Some families strapped for support, like the Chens, end up relying on migrant labor to ease the load. Taiwan's been working to make it easier to hire caregivers from abroad, but it's also faced repeated calls for better treatment of its foreign labor force. Taiwan's aging society affects many aspects of life in the country. And as the number of seniors needing care here continues to grow, NGOs offering essential resources to families will have their hands full for years to come. Klein Wang and Joyce Chen for TaiwanPlus.
A construction worker is dead after a piece of equipment fell on him. The worker's leg was caught under a construction vehicle that fell over at a military worksite in the southern city of Kaohsiung. He died on the way to the hospital. Local labor officials have halted work at a site. The construction company could be fined up to $10,000 for violating safety rules.
事前调查作业场所的地质地形状况，也没有采取必要的措施来防止作业机械的翻覆，而且作业时也没有禁止人员进入操作半径或者是附近有危险之余的场所。
Beijing is experiencing record-breaking low temperatures as China grapples with the historic cold spell. Officials in the Chinese capital clocked more than 300 hours of sub-zero temperatures for December, breaking a 72-year record. Shanghai also recorded its chilliest period in 4 decades, while some areas of northern China hit minus 40 degrees Celsius. Blizzards in the country are causing flight delays and straining the country's heating capacity. Coming up, how technology is keeping vegetarians and meat lovers satisfied. We'll bring you that story after a quick break.
Formosa is the old name of Taiwan. Coming from Portuguese, it means the beautiful one. This island is really beautiful island and has very friendly, welcoming people.
An important part of our mission is to serve as cultural ambassadors. In that role, just as we welcome to Taiwan tonight,
From Formosa, coming Sunday, December 31st, 9 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
For TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Homes are flooded in southern Thailand after 2 days of torrential rain. Roads and train services in the south of the country have been closed and schools suspended. Extreme weather has also caused problems in the Andaman Sea and the Gulf of Thailand, with at least 7 ships, including a tourist lifeboat, sunk this past week. Thai authorities have warned of flash floods and landslides in the coming days. Thousands of Serbians are protesting the results of an election that many say was unfair. The election of December 17th saw the ruling Populist Party, seen as close to Russia, declared winners of parliamentary and local polls, but the opposition alleges election fraud. Police detained at least 38 people who took part in protests. Hundreds of demonstrators later gathered at a capital's police headquarters, where the detained were thought to be held. Opposition group Serbia Against Violence has called for the vote to be voided and for new elections. In Taiwan, if you publicly insult someone, even by swearing at them, you could face up to a year in prison or a fine of up to around $3,000. Now, Taiwan's constitutional court is debating whether this is an unreasonable barrier to free speech. To find out more, TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt spoke to Michael Fahey, a Taipei-based legal consultant.
What is Taiwan's public insult law?
Well, Taiwan's public insult law is a criminal prohibition on insulting someone in public. So, for example, if you called someone a jerk, or the Chinese equivalent of a word that means kind of like brute or animal, 畜生, you could be convicted of public insult. It's intended to protect the citizens' interest in not having their dignity affronted in public by being insulted. if you don't want a criminal record, somebody might be able to extract a settlement out of you in exchange for dropping the charges. So it's not nothing. It can be a way to harass people. That's one criticism of it.
Why is the Constitutional Court debating this law now?
There have been complaints for many years that this is an annoyance and sort of not in keeping with Taiwan as a free and democratic society. I think it may be related to Taiwan, like everywhere else, is dealing with a lot of difficult questions about how do we regulate speech, especially online in a time of misinformation and hate speech and things like this, without unnecessarily burdening freedom of expression at the time. So I think the court thought that this would be a good time to take up one aspect of that much larger problem.
Who generally gets caught up in these kinds of cases? Who's bringing these suits and who's being accused?
I think the typical case would be two neighbors who get into an argument about something, or somebody at a meeting of a property management association in a large community who gets mad and, tells off the chairman of the meeting, or perhaps a foreigner who gets a close call in heavy traffic and yells something in English, a bad word and a curse word in English, which maybe is just an exclamation, but it's important to realize that the Chinese for this gongran wu ru means a public humiliation offense. So it's not just that you're insulting somebody, it's that you're publicly humiliating them.
What are the arguments in favor of keeping the law as it is?
I think it's just generally thought that, if people don't insult each other all the time, maybe there'll be less fights and we'll just live in a kinder, gentler society. And we don't want to see people insulting people online.
That was Michael Fahey, a Taipei-based legal consultant, speaking to Louise Watt. The court's ruling on the public insult law is expected within 3 months. Cold weather has killed thousands of milkfish in southern Taiwan. Temperatures in Yunlin County dipped to 11 degrees Celsius over the weekend, causing mass die-offs in fish farms. An estimated 6,000 kilograms of milkfish have been affected. Authorities in the area are advising fishers to harvest their fish immediately and take extra precautions to protect their ponds. If you're a die-hard meat eater, you may want to look away. A new veggie product has hit the streets of Taiwan. Sally Jensen takes a look.
The kind of marbling you only see on animal flesh. But what if we told you these so-called meats are made from mushrooms? Research scientists and the private sector in Taiwan have developed this edible mycoprotein, a sort of fake meat made from fungus. And it's a big hit among first-time tasters.
感觉不出来它是素食的，对，真的像真的肉一样。它的口感比市面上鸡米花再更扎实一点，然后吃起来没有说那么油。
Using 3D printing technology, the texture and taste of this fungi-based fake meat can be achieved in just 3 days. Compare that to the 7 months, massive amounts of water, land and feed it takes to raise a pig, only to send it to the chopping block for a potentially cancer-causing roast dinner. Schools are joining in with industry on this new 3D printed mycoprotein trend, adding veganized items like ice cream, popcorn chicken and hot dogs to the menu.
我们现在把它应用到连冰淇淋都在做，还有做面包、做烘焙。
For those who are already veggie, mycoprotein may not be much more than a fun new option. But for hardcore meat eaters, it's a kinder, healthier alternative to the often harmful food products they know and love. Ryan Wu and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Over the past 5 years, Taiwan has seeded its coastal waters with millions of fish. But new research reveals that more careful planning is needed to ensure the long-term viability of the country's marine resources. Bryn Thomas has the story.
If you were to cast a line off the coast of Taiwan, there's a good chance you'd catch a fish seeded by the country's fisheries agency. It's worked with the private sector for 5 years to release about 200 million into the wild, in places they'll have the most impact.
现在放流的地点其实是有点像过去历史栖地，那这地点现在数量比较少，那我们放流出去就看到很明显的结果。
New research shows that up to half of certain species of fish pulled from waters around Taiwan are genetically related to fish seeded by the agency. Although the program has been a success, it's one that could cause problems down the line. Researchers say the agency also needs to consider how seeding might impact genetic diversity. There's a possibility the fish they release mate with their own genetic relatives, which could damage their offspring. This means more genetic testing is needed so measures can be put in place to control who can seed where.
透过检测鱼苗的遗传多样性，也能够确保说这些鱼苗它是不会造成野外的基因的窄化。
And inbreeding isn't the only challenge Taiwan's fisheries are facing. It also needs to be careful when introducing fish into ecosystems without the capacity to handle them.
选择正确的物种，而不是说这些物种我们放到海里面去影响到海洋的生态，跟影响到整个物种的均衡。
That's why the Fisheries Agency is taking measures to ensure sustainable practices. Starting next year, it'll introduce licensing laws and fines for private companies that don't follow seeding regulation. It's all part of an effort to make sure that, moving forward, there will be plenty more fish in the sea. Chen and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
A king of the ocean is becoming a rare find in South America. Harel Hughes reports on how the king crab is disappearing from Argentina's coast.
A dish fit for a king, the king crab. It's a local specialty in the city of Ushuaia in Argentina, at the southernmost tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego. Tourists from all over the world travel here to try the Patagonian delicacy. But restaurants are noticing a change.
En Ushuaia hoy los restaurantes están sacando el producto centolla de sus cartas porque no lo tienen, no lo consiguen. No está la propuesta de la centolla en los proveedores que tenían normalmente.
Fishers have seen the decline coming for a while.
El tema de la merma de la centolla, yo te diría que podría ser unos 4 o 5 años atrás que empezó a decaer un poco, según en qué zona, ¿sí?
Scientists have been studying the king crab population since the 1970s and say this year is different. The population is now in a vulnerable position. They point to 2 factors: fishing patterns and climate change. One possible solution is to cultivate king crab larvae in the hope of releasing them into the wild. The scientists say more must be done.
No olvidarnos que también es un recurso muy importante para nuestra región, que tenemos que proteger, es parte de nuestro ecosistema y también es parte de nuestro acervo cultural como emblema incluso de nuestra región.
The king crab is not just a delicious dish, but also an icon of Tierra del Fuego. Conservationists hope its king claws won't disappear from Cape Horn. Delphine Chen and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
8 months before the Paris Olympics are set to start, chefs at the Olympic Village are unveiling the menu. Tiffany Wang checks out what's cooking.
An Olympian challenge. Chefs in France are gearing up for the 2024 Olympic Games, perfecting a menu of over 500 dishes to keep athletes in top shape and satisfy their appetite. The Paris Olympics will run for 2 weeks next year, starting in July, with the Paralympic Games to follow. And chefs will have their work cut out for them, but they're pulling all the stops.
15 000 athlètes, 40 000 repas jour, tout ça pour 206 délégations. Donc c'est un vrai challenge culinaire, un vrai défi logistique. Nous, notre objectif, c'est de participer à la performance des athlètes.
France is well known for its cuisine, which chefs will be sure to represent on the dinner table. But they also want to make sure there's something that suits athletes' diverse tastes. Each dish will be judged by the Olympics Organizing Committee, as well as the athletes themselves, They can leave comments on a survey to help chefs develop the dish.
Donc on note on a scanné ce petit QR code avec un questionnaire où on note l'aspect visuel, gustatif et puis la recette globale. On fait aussi des commentaires plus précis. Puis on recevra un compte rendu où on verra ce qui a été pris en compte, mais ça va même plus loin que la nourriture. On s'intéresse à comment les allergies sont présentées, les plats dans lesquels c'est servi, parce qu'il y a aussi tout l'aspect accessibilité qu'on n'oublie pas de prendre en compte, que ce soit pour la période olympique ou la période paralympique.
Next year's Olympic menu will emphasize vegetarian options, while keeping in mind athletes' nutritional needs. The chefs say a third of the protein served will come from vegetables.
Certains des sportifs qui sont plus musclés vont avoir besoin d'un peu plus de protéines que d'autres disciplines où c'est vraiment des petits gabarits. Donc à partir du moment où on a un buffet et qu'il y a une grande diversité, chacun va pouvoir adapter ses apports en fonction de ses besoins.
And with over 500 dishes to choose from, athletes will surely be able to find something to suit their palate in Paris and fuel world-class performances. Leon Lian and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with images of thousands of women performing the traditional Maharashtra dance for peace and harmony in the Indian state of Gujarat. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.